What is the worst case of bad parenting you have ever seen? Story 1 saw a lady leave her toddler in the car as she went to Walmart. It was 102 degrees out. I never saw her go in, but I noticed the kid as I walked by, sweating and crying. I waited a few minutes, then busted her window and got the kid out, pulled my car next to hers, and we waited with the AC on while I called the cops. They arrived before she got out of the store. Watched her get arrested as the cops took the kid. I haven't been that angry in years. Edit well. Now I'm part of the gold rush, I guess. Thanks, random stranger. Edit 2. A lot have asked how I broke the window. The kid was in the front passenger seat. I took a 3-iron to the back window. I might not be able to hit a golf ball with it, but I can nail a window. The kid was screaming, but he started calming down after a few minutes in my car, just sniffling and wanting his mom. Edit 3 2 gifts of gold. Guys, thanks so much, but I just did what any rational person would do. Seriously, you people are terrific. Story 2. I'm a waiter at a chain restaurant prominent in my area. Not the worst case of parenting I've seen, but this is the one that comes to mind. 2 overweight women come in with their kids. When asked what to drink, one of the kids replies with an enthusiastic apple juice. Mom looks at her kid, says, "No, honey, you just had juice in the car." So the kid pouts a second, but then his face brightens, and he says, "Water." Mom looks over at him, says, "No, son, you don't like water. You can have Coke, Sprite, or DR Pepper." He orders a Sprite. The other kid takes his lead and orders DR Pepper. Story 3. I was a lifeguard, and one day, I decided to get to my first rotation of the day early. It turns out as I was approaching the pool, someone screamed that there was a child who was at the bottom of the pool who was unresponsive. I immediately went to action, administered CPR, and before I put the AED on, she showed signs of life. It turns out that the parents just left their 6-year-old at the pool alone, knowing she couldn't swim. But wait, it gets better. The parents started yelling at me because apparently it was my fault that she couldn't swim. Dicks. Moral of the story, please monitor your kids at pools. Lifeguards are not babysitters. Edit. Thank you, kind Redditor, for the gift of Gold D. 3. Edit 2. Thank you again for the Reddit Gold. I will pay it forward. Edit 3. To clear some things up, the pool is guarded during certain hours of the day. It's a relatively small pool, and I was not on duty yet. I just happened to be there just in time to rescue the child. Make sure to tell your friends and family about pool safety. Drownings could go down drastically if we all just watch our kids. For those who are curious, the child made a full recovery, besides a broken rib or 2. Story 4. This is my 4th year as a teacher in a poverty-stricken area. So far, I've seen a child with an iron mark on his back. As in an iron you iron your clothes, with a girl who is obviously malnourished said that her mom and mom's boyfriend let her big brother pee white stuff on her back, etc. A kid was being changed first thing in the morning. A couple of cracked rocks fell out of his diaper. A usually unseen dad drops his boy off at school, but accidentally brought the book bag that he keeps his weed in his cell. Not his kid's bag. Thing was stuffed to baggies filled with green. Honestly, I could go on for days. It's ridiculous how many stories I have in such a short time in this career. Edit learned formatting tricks from some very helpful Redditors. And since everyone is interested in how the girl who was raped by her brother turned out, her actual confession was that he peed white stuff on her back and in my butt in front. She was immediately taken from the school by police. A medical exam confirmed the abuse. And that evening, the rest of the siblings were taken into state custody as well, and have been similarly abused. And yes, all of these were reported. I love these kids as if I had birthed them myself, and I make sure that I do all I can to make sure they're being taken care of. I'd much rather report something that turns out to be false, just to be on the safe side. Edit 2 Woe Gold. Thank you, kind stranger. May your life be blessed with the cuteness of 1,000 chubby puppies. Story 5. I one had a student whose life was permanently by having experienced traumatic brain injury. The day-to-day result of the injury was the kid's inability to self-censor, literally spoke aloud any thought that entered their head. Imagine the impact that would have on your life. Think about how many people could possibly tolerate you for any length of time. How did the kid get this? The father kicked the child in the head repeatedly. Why? Because the kid tried to stop the father from beating the mother to death in front of the kid. Story 6. My friend battled with anorexia growing up. When she was finally clear of it, her mother got incredibly frustrated by how much food she was comparatively eating. It's not free, and put a chain lock on the fridge. On another note, I can fix things out a 2-inch opening in a refrigerator door, since not being able to eat at sleepovers was a pain. Story 7. I worked a Halloween store, and this mother let her kids throw food on the ground. They threw half-eaten corn dogs and fries all over the ground. Her kids also were pouring their drink all over the floor, thinking it was funny. They ignored her kids, and it took us 30 minutes to clean up after them. I've also seen a case of good parenting, and I've always wanted to post it. Hope it's accepted here. I was at the post office with a friend, and we were shipping a few boxes to family overseas. As I was about to walk in the post office, a 3-year-old kid comes running out and nearly runs into me. His mom came out right after that. I didn't think much of it because kids don't really think when they do actions at that age. So I just ignored it. I'm inside filling out info. When the little boy comes back in and his mom at the door, he comes up to me and says, "Excuse me." I look down and say, "Hello." He just stood there for a second, and his mom said, "Isn't there something you would like to tell this young man?" The kid just stood there after thinking about it. He said, "I'm sorry for almost knocking you over." I just smiled. I told him that it was okay, and we're cool. I then told his mom it was no worry and that I very much appreciated it. That made my day. Story 8, I'm a teacher, and I get to see some of the worst parenting. Besides the usual, my child is a little angel, I got a parent that was rage-worthy. Her daughter was the first at her level to manage to score full marks on one of my numerous tests, and she called me up to about it. They couldn't believe her daughter managed to do it and was convinced I was not doing my job, aka implying she cheated. I was completely speechless on the phone. I stood my ground and gave all the test questions and marking rubrics to my superior. They agreed with me, and the girl was awarded the full marks. Way to boost a child confidence. Side note, her daughter was one of the sweetest, most hardworking student with absolutely zero complaint from other teachers. Life is unfair. Edit if it's true about what everyone says that it sounds like Matilda. The next time I call, I'll be asking her to stop watching Matilda. Story 9. I know a mother who has systematically undermined and attempted to destroy her daughter from pretty much day one. When the girl was young, the mother was constantly going on about how the child was so fragile and not strong. If she had a soccer competition the night before, then she always got to skip school and stay home the next day to recover. This was a perfectly healthy kid, by the way. Meanwhile, mom said about marrying an old guy who she believed erroneously was rich. So, next thing the girl knows, she's living in a big house, being taken on expensive ski holidays, and going to New York. It's a fair distance. As we're Canadian to shop for her school clothes, mom starts complaining about how shallow and entitled and spoiled the girl is. Meanwhile, she's bought herself a new Mercedes. Middle school, the girl commented happily to me that she's really good in math. The mother, standing right there, immediately says, "No, you're not. You just think you're good at math, but you're really not." Every time the kid mentioned the possibility of being good at anything, her mother cut her down. And then the mother goes around telling everyone the girl's quit her sports because she's lazy and unmotivated. The teen years hit, and the fight star police get called repeatedly. The police eventually get sick of being called and start telling the two of them where to shove it. The husband dies, and the bills pile up. The mother pulls out all the stops in a bid to control her daughter, threatening to kill her, threatening to kill herself, locking the girl out of the house, throwing her belongings out on the lawn, then apologizing and buying her more expensive to make up and convince her to come home again. If the girl leaves, you see the child support would be cut off. She needed her daughter living at home. The mother, meanwhile, is continuing to badmouth her daughter to anyone who will listen, calling her all kinds of names and running down her character. At one point, when the girl was 19, I tried pointing out to her mother that she's an adult. The mother's response, "No, she's not. She doesn't talk to me anymore," which I'm fine with. As one mutual acquaintance put it, how can the daughter be expected to grow up when her mother still hasn't? Anyway, as far as I know, the girl has finally made it into a university residence, where hopefully she's clear of her mother. She may indeed have her faults, but she's nothing more than what her mother's made her. I just don't understand how someone can screw up basic parenting so thoroughly. She didn't have to buy expensive clothes for the girl or take her to a beautician. All she had to do was not be in her kid. Is that really so hard? Story 10. When I was 15, I went to Honduras to paint a school and do some camaraderie work. One day, when I was painting, there was a little girl who peed herself in the class where I was. The teacher slapped her and went immediately to call the mother of the girl. A few minutes later, the mother entered with a ruler. She slapped her daughter several times until the little girl, vomited because of the pain. The mother then slapped her again because of the mess she did. The worst part is that we couldn't do anything because we were told that if this kind of stuff happened and we tried to solve it, we could go to jail. TLDR saw a little girl get beaten so badly that she vomited. Story 11. There was an alcoholic walking with his son and daughter. The little girl was maybe 5, really thin and covered in bruises. The little boy was about 7 to 8. The drunken father was shuffling along with a gallon of milk in his hand. He shoved the gallon's jug in the girl's arms, and she almost toppled over. He gave her a look that froze the little girl solid, and she picked herself up and said, "It's heavy, and I can't," to which her father said, "Life is hard. Deal with it. You want to drink milk? You have to earn it." So the little boy grabs the jug and carries it for his sister. I hate to know what happened to him when they got home. I hope the father got shit-faced and passed out in a toilet. Story 12. I work in an arena, so I see a lot of bad parenting in action. My favorite is this couple that used to come for Pee Wee hockey. They had 2 kids, one playing hockey and the other, a little girl who was around 7 years old. The mom would just dump the kid off and hand the 7-year-old over to daddy to hide and chat with her friends. This guy was one of the weakest, most defeated excuses for a man. This 7-year-old terror would do nothing but scream, throw tantrums, physically and mentally abuse her father. He just sat there and took it with one of the most depressed looks on his face. Every now and then he would have enough and tell her she was upsetting him and being hurtful. One time, she responded to this by slapping him in the face, which shut him up. This dude was legitimately pimp-slapped by his 7-year-old daughter. Story 13 didn't see it, but it's what happened to my brother-in-law, the man my husband's sister is married to. He and his siblings were taken away by the state because their mother went out partying and left a drunk old guy to watch them. This man passed out, and my BIL, being only a young child, thought he had died. He called the police saying that the man who was taking care of them died. Police get there. House is trash, kids are hungry, mom's not home, and there's a passed-out drunk guy on the couch. They took the kids away, and the mom comes back, also trashed, flipping out and screaming at her son. She still blames him for it 20 years later, apparently. Story 14, my girlfriend's mother. She is such hate to her kids. She'll get mad at her daughter, my girlfriend, who lives with me about 10 blocks away from her mother, if he hasn't come around to help with the dishes. She called up to yell at my GF once because my GF and I took a weekend trip out of town, and she had maybe wanted to go on a walk together. When we do go over, sometimes she's so busy on Farmville she won't say a word, but when we leave 15 minutes, she's like, "What? You just got here? Fine, whatever, you just go." On the other hand, her 22-year-old son lives at home, has no job, no college education, literally steals money out her purse. Once even broke the safe to take money from there, has numerous speeding tickets, petty charges, and even a DUI, and continues to drive without a license or insurance, and she dotes on him. Also, he doesn't shower and just adds another layer of Axe body spray, and stays up all night drinking and playing COD. The mom once literally yelled at my girlfriend for losing a couple pounds because the mom is obese and can't lose it no matter how hard she tries. She has a treadmill in the basement. Twice a week, she walks for 10 minutes at 2 miles per hour. That's her trying as hard as she can. All she eats is fast food that she makes her husband go out and get. Her husband makes 90 of the income, yet she goes and buys anything she wants ever, and they're permanently poor. I don't know how my angelic, amazing, perfect, gorgeous girlfriend came from that family of UPS. Edit one thing I want to make clear, I do not hate this family because of how awful they are as human beings. That means nothing to me at all. I hate this family because of how poorly they treat my girlfriend, who does everything to help them for no thank you at all. Yes, there's a lot of venom in how I talk about them, but it is purely because of the they make my girlfriend deal with when she tries to help them. Story 15, I don't even know if this is exactly the right thread. Nor is this my story, it's my mom's, but here it goes anyway. This must be close to 25 years ago, so right before I was born. My mother retired as a teacher, and during the earlier years of her career, she taught middle school in a pretty bad area of drugs, a couple stabbings a year, even in middle school, etc. And this is one of the stories that stood out as the worst. A female student my mom had was always shy and reserved, though as a teacher my mom believed the case extended into the realm of physical abuse. A sad note to add is that my mother had taught a couple of the girl's older sisters, sheepish and quiet though not to the extent of their younger sibling. My mom tries to be nice to the girl, and obviously doesn't pry. But her attempts are met with sheer refusal to cooperate in any way. Eventually, the girl starts wearing loose clothing that covers every piece of skin leading up to the student's hands. My mom finally contacts the counselor's office for signs of abuse. The district policies try hard not to overreach in fear of incurring a lawsuit with a parent who proves to be innocent. But in this instance, there appeared to be something to work with. First things first, the counselor speaks to the student alone. Her discovery is horrible. The young girl isn't covering bruises, but quickly swelling belly. She is pregnant. A conference is organized including my mother, the counselor, the principal, and the young girl and her mother. Hey race, where it all begins. Those aren't the only people in attendance. Arriving with the child and mother of 3 more sisters, each older than the next by a couple of years, and a father. This man is polite, soft-spoken, and intelligent, and clearly in 100% control of this entire family. No female, including the wife, says a word. It is only this man who speaks, measuring each word carefully, but in an allegedly infuriating way. He barely hides any direct exposure of his wrongdoing, while making it clear that these women do as he says, yet is careful to not incriminate himself at all. Every daughter is pregnant. The oldest is about to burst. He makes it clear that there is no boyfriend in the picture, but doesn't explain any further. Again, the mother doesn't speak a word. Even when asked several questions, she defers to her husband, who apparently molested the daughters starting with the oldest, and once they were with child and had bellies too large to allow for comfortable intercourse, they would move on to the next. If it sounds odd that all the girls were pregnant at once, it's because two of the girls had already had kids previously. There was no way to know how many times Head molested these girls, or when exactly Head moved on to the youngest, who was 12. When the meeting ended, my mom said the counselor, and the principal walked out absolutely stunned. There was nothing they could do with none of the kids, or mother admitting a thing. They just sat there, stone-faced, as per the father's will. I'm sure the family all walked out silent. The father cool and collected without a worry in the world. That household operated precisely according to his desire, and that was not about the change. The meeting itself shows that the man not only had no shame, he essentially bragged about it all by bringing along the other daughters, showing that this was his family group of slaves to do with as he pleased, with no consequences. Later in the year, my mom's student left school to deliver the baby, and school broke for summer shortly after. But my mom did say that the next year, the girl returned as an 8th grader. This stands as one of the sickest stories I've ever heard, and one of the most chilling my mom had to tell about her time as a teacher. This happened when she was a much younger teacher, and I'm not sure how different she would have treated the situation as an older woman. TLDR, my mother taught a young, clearly abused 12-year-old who ended up, along with her 3 older sisters, molested and impregnated by their louse of father, while their mother did a big fat nothing about it. Edited for clarity. Story 16, I haven't seen a child being beat or outright abused. Thank God. But the worst to deal with is a parent of the non-parents. You usually find them at the park, nose deep in their phones, completely ignoring their children. Now I hate helicopter parents as much as the next chick, but the opposite end of the extreme is much worse. The worst non-parent I've encountered was a very overweight lady who brought her 3 or 4 kids to the park. Aged between about 2 and 6, she plops down and begins ignoring her kids as soon as she arrives. And immediately her kids go to work, screaming at each other, cursing, pushing and hitting each other, throwing the swings at each other. Soon one of the kids walked up to my son, 6 at the time, who was on the tire swing, and yelled at him to get off. My son said, "Head, just got in there," and asked the boy if he wanted to get on the other side, explaining how 2 people can make it swing better. The boy responded by grabbing a chain on the swing and started shaking it violently. Trying to make my son fall off, I run over and grab his arm gently and say, no, that's not nice. The kid looks up at me and smacks me in the face. I look over, and the mom is still in her own little world, leaving the other moms scrambling around doing her parenting for her. Her other kids are screaming and throwing gravel, and one of them found a big stick and started walking around, waving it, hitting things with it in the toddler area. I told my son to go play elsewhere, but the little brat followed him. And this is where I lost it as my son was reaching for the first monkey bar on a tall platform. The kid started pushing him from behind, TRYNG, to make him fall the 4-drop. My son dropped to the platform and clutched it, trying not to fall. I screamed at the kid to stop, but he ignored me. So I marched over to the mom, apologized for interrupting, and explained that her kids were making it difficult for the other kids to play safely. She listened to me quietly with no emotion on her face, even when I told her about him smacking me. I tried to be polite by smiling and using phrases like "I'm not mad," but I'm sure my quivering voice made it apparent I was upset. When I finished, she seemed dumbstruck for a moment, and I almost thought she was about to apologize, but then she said, "Why don't you take care of your own kids?" Then looked back down at her phone, pretended like she couldn't see me anymore. I stood there for a minute, stunned, listening to her audible, labored breathing. I don't remember ever being so angry. I didn't know what else to do, so I just gathered my son and left. This happened almost 2 years ago, and I still rage when I think about it. Walking my dog this morning, obese redneck woman says to her young child, "I should make you carry the milk. You wanted it." This sweet little boy then said good morning to me and pet my dog. Story 17, I was 14 when I smoked pot for the first time. I was at a friend's house, and she invited another friend over. The girl was 17 and had a baby with her that was a week old. When they brought up the subject, I mentioned that maybe it would be a good idea to put the baby in the other room while we smoked. The mom said she might as well get used to it now and smoke with the baby sitting right next to her. I never saw her or the baby again after that, but I regret not saying something. That baby would be 15 years old now. I wonder how her life turned out. Story 18, I was at Olive Garden, and this family came in. Oh my God, this family was fat. The grandparents traveled in this van that was obviously made for fat people, as it had a winch of some sort to lower them out of the van and into their power scooters. The parents were easily over 500 pounds, and the kids were one of the saddest things I've ever seen. They already had 4 chins and appeared to be about 10 years old. They all loaded up their plates with fatty, greasy food, making them even fatter. Come on, people, break the cycle somehow. If you're that fat, at least make sure your kids Don't become like you. Story 19 edit, thank you. For the Reddit goal people are wondering where this happened at, which was near the University of New Mexico campus. Surprise, surprise. One hot, 100-degree summer afternoon as I was walking to my car from campus, I passed by the local Thai food restaurant nearby. There were cars parked out in front of the restaurant, and that's when I noticed it. Someone had left their 6-month-old baby in the car. They only left the window cracked about less than an inch. The baby was crying and looked red and sweaty. I waited a few minutes, maybe thinking the parents were picking up a to-go order, but after no one came out, I called the cops. The cops roll up, break the window, and the parents come running outside. Apparently, they thought it was okay because they were sitting near the window and could watch the baby for distress. They told the cops the baby was crying, and they didn't want to bring it in and upset other diners. What made me more pissed was when the cops let them go and just told them to bring the baby inside. Story 20, my cousin recently destroyed a tree my parents planted a few weeks after they moved into their new home. The parents didn't punish him. They praised him for his strong arm. Breaking a year-old sapling does not make you strong. Story 21, train tracks cross near a park that we frequent. A trestle crosses a creek near the edge of the park. I witnessed a dad on his smartphone forget to check on his kids while they wandered onto the tracks then the trestle. When I noticed they had gotten onto the trestle, I bolted towards them. They had gotten off of the tracks before I could get to them. But not 5 minutes later, an Amtrak train barreled through. Edit I'm told is spelled trestle. I'm a bad speller. Thank you for this gold stuff, internet stranger. Story 22, my mom and I were in line at the dollar store when I was teen. There was a little boy not more than 8 or 9 in line with his little sister, maybe about 4 or 5, in front of us buying paper plates, toilet paper, and chips. Everyone in line noticed they were alone. They looked sad and gaunt. He never let go of her hand. We noticed he had car keys. After they walked out, I followed them to the parking lot and saw them climb into the car and start the engine. I ran inside and told everyone, and my mom ran outside and stopped them. We called the police, and the kids were so scared. It turns out their mom and dad were drug addicts and had been on a binge for days. The little boy said he had driven to the store before, and that it was his father who had given the keys. The cops picked up the kids. I don't know what happened to the parents. Story 23, my friend gives her 6-year-old son melatonin and Ritalin when he has too much energy every single day. This kid get a cocktail of pills that all counteract each other. I don't know, giving your kids drugs, even if they're prescribed, instead of being a parent and teaching the kid to calm down, or spending time with him, or letting him go play, or teaching him that it's not okay to go bananas all the time. That's just not cool with me. Side note, I'm not debating the need of medications for little kids. And I'm not saying everyone who gives their kids drugs is bad. I'm saying specifically her son isn't prescribed anything. They're her pills. That's just up. DCF was called by a few people for a reason. Story 24, the friendly family-run bodega in the medium-sized city in China where I studied Chinese for 2 semesters had a flock of kids continually underfoot, and it was agreed that every Saturday afternoon, I'd teach the 5-year-old girl English in exchange for a home-cooked meal and as much booze as I could drink. First lesson comes and goes, and we're all sitting in the back of the shop an hour later, tucking into a bubbling cauldron of fish and chili peppers alongside a spread of at least a dozen more dishes. Naturally, I was encouraged to review the day's vocabulary words in front of the entire flock. Do you like cola? I asked the girl in both Chinese and English. No. Do you like water? No. Do you like tea? No. Do you like beer? Yes. I raise an eyebrow. Really? You drink beer? Huh? Yes. I look over at mom and dad, and they're happily nodding in approval. Dad pops the cap off a beer with his lighter and grins, and for being such a good girl today, you get a full cup of beer, he pours a glass, and the kid promptly downs it to the delight of the entire family. Not saying this is bad parenting, as much as it a funny story that fits within the overall theme. Story 25, I teach 3rd grade. One of my kids who made us on nearly everything had gotten an 87 on a creative writing assignment. The morning of the day, after I passed the papers back to them, she came up to me looking a little embarrassed and said her mom was going to come in around noon to talk to me about the grade. Past teachers had warned me that this girl had a helicopter mom, but I hadn't had any bad experiences with her yet, and we were a couple months into the school year. Sure enough, right as the lunch bell was about to ring, the door bursts open and in storms helicopter mom. She looked furious. I could tell she was about to lay into me in front of my entire class. But then a piercing metallic shriek hit my ears. One of her rotors had clipped the wall, and she just started falling apart and spinning out of control. A rotor flew across the room and killed 2 and injured 3, and then she crashed into our terrarium and burst into flames, killing the class's pet frog Scooter, and shrapnel from the wreckage peppered the front row of kids. R.I.P. Scooter, BTW, this is not mine. It's an old copy-paste thing. Story 26, I guess this was bad and what the mother didn't do. I was working in child protection, had to supervise a visit between a mother and her month-old or so child. Sat there in the waiting room for an hour with the baby, and the mother never turned up. It was the third time she missed a visit. I guess she didn't care enough. Story 27. I've posted this before, but when I worked at a small independent pharmacy, read not Walgreens, CVS, etc., I watched two parents with their son pay for their OxyContins by emptying out his piggy bank on the counter in front of them. Story 28. My friend asked me to watch his kid while he was busy. I ended up needing to change the child, and he had the worst case of diaper rash I've ever seen. Almost the entirety of the area covered by his diaper was a rash, and cleaning him up was torture. He shuddered and wailed and looked at me, don't, ow, oh no, ow, begging for me to stop hurting him. I was so infuriated at his parents I was shaking. Edit, I should mention that there was a lot of neglect and lack of changing his diaper. I can say with a lot of confidence that he spent most of his day with a filled diaper because his parents did not want to deal with it. Story 29. Was on the Frankston bus line home from work last year prior to getting my driving license. I witnessed a heavily pregnant mother chain smoking whilst on the phone and ranting in thick curse that made me blush, and I spent a fair chunk of my life around Army people whilst juggling her existing baby's bottleneck with that of a Coke bottle. And then fed her baby a bottle of Coke. Frankston, Victoria, Australia. Yup. Story 30. I'm a former teacher. I still work with youth, so I see an awful lot of parents, good and bad. When I was a teacher a few years ago, the school was holding parent-teacher conferences. Mind you, this was middle school, so we held conferences with our advising groups and had a folder of work that we had compiled from other teachers. So I start going through this folder of work. This kid is a quiet kid who struggles with staying focused and daydreams a lot, but is otherwise not a bad kid or anything. We get to a science test where he missed like several points because of kind of dumb mistakes, and the dad took the time to go through each problem he missed and rework the problems with his son. So I'm thinking, wow, hey, race a parent who is really invested in his son's education. You go, dad. And then it happened. He flips to the next paper, which was some daily assignment from language arts. The assignment was done and everything. He had gotten something like an 85 on it, but this paper had some remarkably intricate doodles on it. They were actually really beautiful. The dad sees this paper and, without a moment's hesitation, he backhanded his son. It was hard enough that the kid got a nose. Father proceeds to scream at him about how his stupid drawings were distracting him from learning, and how if he ever sees him drawing again, unless he's making straight, as there will be to pay, just flipping out and berating him hardcore. I try calming him down by saying that maybe enrolling him in the art class would give him an outlet for his talent, and it wouldn't distract him so much. And then the dad gets up in my face like we are almost nose to nose, and he starts screaming that I'm a stupid who doesn't know about raising children. I just have a degree in it. I was speechless. I was a first-year teacher, and I hadn't had anything like this happen before. So I grab the bleeding, crying kid's hand and take him to the office. Dad tries me back in the room. In the scariest teacher voice I could muster, I said that if he laid a hand on me or the kid again, he would leave this building in handcuffs. I brought the kid to the office, had the secretary call the police, and made my first ever report to DCFS because, he had slapped his kid in front of a mandated reporter, Edito 0 gold for me. Thank you, kind stranger. I didn't actually think random people just did that for others. Faith in humanity. Story 31 in line at CVS. A well-behaved little girl asked her overweight, so what do you think Honey Boo Boo's mother for a candy bar? She wasn't persistent or annoying, just asked once in very timid, soft-spoken voice. Her Jabba, the hut mom, flies at the handle and screams, if you don't stop with this, I am going to eat your dinner. Silently, the little girl began to cry. There was Black Lady in Walmart who had snatched her son up by the arm. She was in his face growling, don't you put nothing else in this cart, you stupid little. Edit, not nearly the worst in this thread, but got a chuckle out of me. Story 32. I was on my break at work, which was at a shopping center. I was having a smoke in the smokers area, and this came over with one child in a stroller and another one on foot. This lady parked the stroller at least 5 meters away from herself and lit up a cigarette. The child that was on was running around and came up to her to ask a question. Before they could even ask, the mother barked off. Mummy's having a smoke. I thought it was the most disgusting thing I had ever witnessed. Mind you, these kids are not a day older than 5. Some people